Please support us by subscriing, liking, sharing, and turning on the notification bell for more. Ethan Crumbley was a sophomore at Oxford High. Quiet, introverted, and often overlooked, he didn't draw much attention from classmates or teachers. But those closest to him, particularly his parents, Jennifer and James Crumbley, were aware of his struggles. Ethan's upbringing was far from idyllic. Reports from neighbors paint a picture of neglect and isolation. Jennifer and James often left Ethan alone at home for long periods while they pursued their own interests, and Ethan's attempts to seek help were often met with dismissal. By early 2021, Ethan's behavior began to shift. He became withdrawn, displaying signs of anxiety and depression that were impossible to ignore. Disturbing sketches appeared in his notebooks, featuring violent imagery that hinted at dark fantasies. He texted his mother about demons haunting their home, and videos surfaced of him torturing small animals. These were not the actions of a boy simply struggling with adolescence. They were warning signs of a young mind spiraling into darkness. Despite these red flags, the Crumbleys chose not to seek professional help for their son. Instead, they took a very different approach. On November 26, just 4 days before the shooting, James Crumbley walked into a local gun shop with Ethan at his side. There, he purchased a 9mm SIG Sauer semi-automatic handgun, ostensibly as an early Christmas gift for his son. Ethan's excitement over the purchase was undeniable. That same day, he posted a photo of the weapon on social media with the caption, "Just got my new beauty today." Jennifer Crumbley even referred to the gun in a social media post as Ethan's new Christmas present. But while Ethan celebrated, the deeper implications of their decision went unaddressed. The gun was not secured, stored in an unlocked drawer at home, easily accessible to Ethan at any time. The Crumbleys' casual attitude toward gun safety would soon have devastating consequences. Ethan Crumbley's troubling behavior didn't appear out of nowhere. In the months and weeks leading up to the tragedy, warning signs became increasingly hard to ignore. Yet, time and again, opportunities to intervene were missed. At school, Ethan's disturbing tendencies began to manifest more openly. He doodled violent images on worksheets: guns, bullets, and people with bloody wounds. One note chillingly read, "The thoughts won't stop. Help me." Another depicted a handgun alongside the words, "My life is useless and the world is dead." When a teacher noticed these alarming drawings, she acted immediately, alerting school counselors and administrators. But instead of treating this as a potential crisis, Ethan's actions were dismissed as mere expressions of frustration. School staff called his parents, Jennifer and James Crumbley, for a meeting that same morning. The meeting was brief and its outcome shocking. Despite being shown their son's chilling sketches and told he needed immediate help, the Crumbleys refused to take Ethan home. They resisted the school's suggestion to have him see a counselor within 48 hours, brushed off concerns about his mental health, and left him to continue his day as if nothing had happened. Even more troubling, no one searched Ethan's backpack, where he had already hidden the weapon that would later shatter countless lives. The school, bound by procedures, allowed him to return to class. The decision, though perhaps procedural, proved catastrophic. While Ethan sat quietly in class, his mother sent him a text. "El, I'm not mad at you. You just have to learn not to get caught." The casual tone reflected a pattern of neglect and disregard. That same day, Ethan's father called 911 to report the gun missing, but it was already too late. In stark contrast to the growing storm of warnings surrounding Ethan, his victims were full of promise and life. Madison Baldwin, 17, was preparing college applications. Tate Meyer, 16, dreamed of playing football at the collegiate level. Hannah St. Juliana, just 14, was described by her family as vibrant and kind. Justin Schilling, also 17, had plans to graduate and join his family's business. Their stories were ones of hope and potential. But Ethan's cries for help, ignored by those who could have made a difference, set the stage for a tragedy that would leave 4 families grieving and a community questioning how such a devastating outcome could have been avoided. At 12:50 p.m. on November 30th, the ordinary day at Oxford High School took a horrifying turn. Ethan Crumbly, carrying a semi-automatic handgun hidden in his backpack, walked into a restroom near the south wing of the school. For several minutes, he remained inside, likely steadying himself for what he was about to do. Then he emerged, weapon in hand, and unleashed terror on the unsuspecting students filling the hallway. The first gunshots rang out during the class transition, a time when the halls were packed with students moving between rooms. Chaos erupted immediately as the deafening sound of gunfire echoed through the building. Some students, startled and confused, froze in place. Others ran frantically, pushing through crowds to find cover. The fear was palpable. Students screamed, teachers shouted for their classes to barricade doors, and alarms blared over the intercom. Despite the panic, moments of extraordinary bravery shone through the darkness. Tate Meyer, a 16-year-old football star, reportedly tried to disarm Ethan, placing himself in harm's way to protect his peers. His heroic efforts were tragically cut short as he was fatally wounded. In the midst of the chaos, students and teachers acted swiftly to implement lockdown procedures. Desks and chairs were pushed against doors. Lights were switched off, and whispers of reassurance echoed in the shadows. Some students hid under desks, while others climbed into closets or cupboards. A group in one classroom climbed out a window and fled across the school grounds, unsure if they were running towards safety or danger. The school intercom system crackled with a message warning of an active shooter. For many, it was the confirmation of their worst fears. Meanwhile, Ethan methodically moved down the hallway, firing indiscriminately into classrooms and at fleeing students. Witnesses described his demeanor as cold and calculating, each shot deliberate and controlled. Within minutes of the first gunshot, a flood of 911 calls overwhelmed local law enforcement. Officers arrived on the scene by 12:53 p.m., less than 3 minutes after the shooting began. They entered the building cautiously but decisively, prepared for the worst. Ethan was found near the restroom where the attack had started, still holding his weapon and with 7 live rounds remaining in the magazine. In a rare moment of compliance, he surrendered without resistance, allowing officers to apprehend him without further bloodshed. The attack lasted just 5 minutes, but left an indelible scar on the community. 4 students, Tate Meyer, Madison Baldwin, Hannah St. Juliana, and Justin Schilling, lost their lives. 7 others, including a teacher, were injured. Classmates recalled the chilling moment when they realized some of their friends were no longer moving, their lives stolen in an instant. The survivors, many of them children, described the experience as surreal. One student recalled hiding in a bathroom stall, frozen in fear as the sound of a gun being cocked echoed just outside the door. Another remembered the eerie silence that fell after the shooting stopped, broken only by distant sobs and the sound of police shouting commands. For law enforcement, the priority was ensuring the safety of the students and staff. Officers conducted 3 sweeps of the school to search for additional victims, while some evacuated to a nearby store for shelter. A few students sought refuge in a nearby home, where a kind stranger offered blankets and reassurance. The building itself was secured, but the emotional toll on those inside could not be undone. When the gunfire stopped, a heavy silence settled over Oxford High School. The halls that had been filled with the sounds of chaos and terror were now eerily quiet. As law enforcement secured the scene, the magnitude of the tragedy began to sink in. Parents, waiting anxiously outside, scanned the crowd of evacuated students, desperate for a glimpse of their children. For some, relief came with a tearful reunion. For others, a devastating truth began to emerge. Their loved ones would not be walking out. The Oxford community, tightly knit and fiercely supportive, was thrown into a state of collective grief. News of the 4 young lives lost, Tate Meyer, Madison Baldwin, Hannah St. Juliana, and Justin Schilling, spread quickly, bringing a wave of sorrow that extended far beyond the town's borders. At the high school, flowers, candles, and handwritten notes began to line the sidewalks. Classmates left mementos at makeshift memorials, photos, football jerseys, and heartfelt messages. Vigils were held that night, drawing hundreds of mourners who came to grieve, pray, and support one another. Candles flickered in the cold November air as voices trembled through tears, reading aloud the names of the victims. Parents clutched their children tightly, knowing how easily it could have been their families suffering this unimaginable loss. As the community mourned, the investigation into Ethan Crumbley's actions began. Law enforcement searched his home, uncovering a disturbing collection of evidence. A journal described his detailed plan to carry out the attack, including his desire to inflict as much harm as possible. Videos recorded the night before the shooting revealed him speaking directly to the camera, expressing his intention to kill his classmates. The journal also included an unsettling line: "Hopefully my shooting will cause Biden to get impeached." Investigators determined that Ethan had spent months fantasizing about violence and had meticulously planned the attack. These findings painted a chilling picture of a teenager who felt disconnected from the world and sought destruction as his only outlet. In the days following the tragedy, fear spread across the region. False alarms and rumors of threats at nearby schools led to widespread panic. Over 60 schools in the area closed temporarily as students and parents grappled with the lingering sense of danger. Law enforcement reassured the public that there were no credible threats, but the psychological impact of the shooting was undeniable. On social media, hashtags like #OxfordStrong began trending as messages of solidarity poured in from across the country. Public figures, including professional athletes and politicians, shared condolences and called for action. The Michigan Wolverines football team wore patches honoring Tate Myre during their next game, while local businesses raised funds to support the victims' families. Yet, amidst the outpouring of support, questions loomed. How could this have happened? Who was responsible for allowing a tragedy of this scale to unfold? The grief that united Oxford also brought a demand for accountability. The community was determined to ensure that the lives lost would not be forgotten, and that meaningful change would follow in the wake of their heartbreak. As the dust began to settle in Oxford, attention shifted from the immediate grief to the pursuit of justice. The legal proceedings that followed would be unprecedented, marking one of the first times in U.S. history that parents faced criminal charges for their child's role in a school shooting. The courtroom became a battleground for accountability, one that raised difficult and far-reaching questions about responsibility and prevention. Ethan Crumbley was charged with 24 counts, including terrorism causing death, first-degree murder, and possession of a firearm during the commission of a felony. Despite his young age, he was charged as an adult, reflecting the severity and premeditation of his actions. In October 2022, he pleaded guilty to all charges, admitting his intent to harm as he stood before the court. His sentencing in December 2023 left no room for doubt: life in prison without parole. But the focus didn't stop with Ethan. Jennifer and James Crumbley became the subject of national scrutiny after prosecutors alleged they ignored glaring red flags and provided Ethan with a firearm used in the attack. Charged with 4 counts of involuntary manslaughter, their case brought to light a controversial question: could parents be held criminally liable for their child's violent actions? In court, Judge Cheryl Matthews delivered a powerful statement, condemning the Crumbleys' negligence. She remarked, "They are not expected to be psychic, but these convictions are not about poor parenting. They concern acts that could have halted a runaway train." The Crumbleys were sentenced to 10 to 15 years in prison, with eligibility for parole after a decade. The courtroom was filled with raw emotion as victim impact statements were read aloud. Nicole Beausoleil, mother of 17-year-old Madison Baldwin, directly addressed the Crumbleys, her voice trembling with grief. "While you were buying your son a gun and leaving it unlocked, I was helping my daughter finish her college essay," she said. Her words pierced through the room, a vivid reminder of the lives lost and the opportunities taken from them. The legal fallout extended beyond the Crumbley family. Survivors and their families filed lawsuits against the Oxford Community Schools, alleging negligence in their handling of Ethan's behavior leading up to the attack. The lawsuits argued that the school had clear legal grounds to search Ethan's belongings, but failed to act, even after being shown his disturbing drawings. These cases sparked heated debates about the role of educational institutions in preventing violence and protecting students. Ultimately, the school district claimed immunity, and the lawsuits were dismissed. Still, the controversy forced Oxford community schools to reevaluate their protocols, promising changes that would prioritize student safety. Despite these reforms, many parents remained frustrated, feeling the district had escaped true accountability. The courtroom drama surrounding the Crumbleys and the school district highlighted a deeper societal issue: the intersection of gun ownership, mental health, and accountability. Could the tragedy at Oxford High have been prevented with stricter oversight, both at home and in the school? And how far should the justice system go in holding individuals and institutions responsible? These questions lingered, challenging a community still reeling from its loss and seeking answers. As the story of Oxford High School unfolded, one question remained at the forefront of everyone's minds. Could this have been prevented? The painful truth lies in a web of systemic failures, missed opportunities, and the unsettling reality of a society grappling with growing violence in its schools. The warning signs were unmistakable. Ethan Crumbly's alarming behavior, both at home and in school, painted a clear picture of a troubled teenager in need of intervention. His drawings spoke of despair and violence. His social media posts alluded to a fascination with weapons. At home, he expressed feelings of isolation, detailing his anguish in text to his mother. Despite these glaring indicators, the lack of action from his parents, combined with the school's decision to send him back to class on the day of the shooting, created a perfect storm. At the center of this tragedy is a debate about accountability. The Crumbleys' decision to purchase a firearm for their son and leave it unsecured has been widely condemned. Equally scrutinized is the school's response, or lack thereof, to the escalating concerns about Ethan's mental state. When school administrators met with the Crumbleys that morning, they had legal grounds to search Ethan's backpack and locker, but chose not to. The firearm that could have been discovered in those crucial moments remained hidden until it was too late. Beyond individual failures, the tragedy at Oxford High underscores broader societal issues. Gun control, for instance, remains a divisive topic in the United States. The ease with which firearms can be purchased and accessed by minors raises urgent questions about current legislation. Should laws require gun owners to secure their weapons more strictly? Should parents face harsher penalties for negligence? These are debates reignited by each new tragedy, yet meaningful progress often feels out of reach. Mental health awareness is another critical piece of the puzzle. The stigma surrounding mental health struggles, particularly among teenagers, continues to prevent many from seeking help. Ethan's cries for support, whether in his texts, his journal, or his behavior at school, went unanswered. Communities must prioritize access to mental health resources, ensuring early intervention for at-risk youth. For survivors, the impact of this tragedy is lifelong. Many have spoken about their lingering trauma, the constant fear that another shooting could happen anywhere at any time. Yet, amid the pain, there is also resilience. Students and families have called for change, advocating for safer schools, stricter gun laws, and better mental health support. Experts in education and law enforcement have echoed these demands. They point to enhanced school security measures, such as routine backpack checks and increased counseling staff, as immediate steps toward prevention. But they also warn that no single solution will end the epidemic of school violence. It requires a multifaceted approach, involving parents, educators, legislators, and communities working together to address the root causes. The tragedy at Oxford High School serves as a heartbreaking reminder of what is at stake when systems fail to protect those most vulnerable. As the community rebuilds, the question remains: will we learn from these mistakes, or will we allow history to repeat itself? The story of Oxford High School is one that will forever be etched in the hearts of those who lived through it. It is a tragedy that underscores the fragility of life, the devastating impact of inaction, and the urgent need for change. But beyond the grief and pain, there is a call to action, a demand to honor the victims not just through memory, but through meaningful reform. Madison Baldwin, 17 years old, was a talented artist with dreams of attending college. Tate Meyer, 16, a star athlete who courageously put others before himself. Hannah St. Juliana, only 14, described by her family as vibrant and kind-hearted. Justin Schilling, 17, an aspiring businessman who had his future ahead of him. Their lives were taken far too soon, leaving behind grieving families and shattered dreams. Please support us by subscribing, liking, sharing, and turning on the notification bell for more.